In a world obsessed with validation, where every smile is filtered and every emotion is staged, there exists a silent group of people who choose to stay unseen, those who never post their photos on social media. We scroll past hundreds of faces every day, yet the ones we never see, those are the ones who hold the deepest stories. Today, we'll dive into the psychology of the unseen minds, the people who live behind the screen, not in front of it. People who don't post their photos on social media are often misunderstood. In a world that glorifies exposure, their silence seems strange, even suspicious. But beneath that silence lies a deeply psychological truth, one rooted in protection, control, and awareness. It's not about being antisocial or secretive. It's about understanding the real value of one's image in a society that consumes faces faster than it understands souls. These people understand something most of us ignore, that the moment your image goes online, it no longer belongs entirely to you. It becomes public property, open to interpretation, judgment, and even manipulation. When someone refuses to post their photos, they're not just avoiding the camera. They're rejecting the unspoken contract of exposure that modern social life demands. They know that every photo invites analysis: how you look, what you wear, what emotion your face shows. A single image can create a story that you never told. People form opinions, assumptions, and judgments instantly. Those who refrain from posting often sense this intuitively. They understand that perception is power, and once given away freely, it can be used against you. This is what in dark psychology is known as the preservation of self-image. It's the act of controlling not just what others see, but what they think they see. The truth is, social media has transformed faces into brands. Every smile becomes a statement. Every expression becomes content. And in that process, people lose something sacred: their mystery. Those who withhold their photos keep that mystery alive. They understand the psychological balance between presence and absence. By remaining unseen, they maintain control over how much of themselves the world can access. It's not about invisibility, it's about selective visibility, revealing only what truly matters. This form of psychological privacy gives them power. They don't rely on filters to define their beauty or on likes to define their worth. Their identity doesn't need digital confirmation. They've detached themselves from the modern addiction of external validation. Every post, every selfie, every moment shared online feeds a psychological loop, the dopamine cycle of attention and approval. Those who avoid it are not missing out, they are breaking free. They have learned that peace is found in the absence of constant judgment. Their silence also reflects a deeper form of intelligence, emotional awareness. They know that exposure comes with consequences. When you post a photo, you're not just showing your face. You're revealing your emotions, your confidence, even your insecurities. A subtle expression can be read in 100 different ways. People who refrain from posting understand that once your emotions are visible, they become manipulable. Others can use them, consciously or unconsciously, to assess your weakness, your pride, or your vulnerability. Remaining unseen becomes a psychological armor, a quiet rebellion against the world's obsession with visibility. There's also a spiritual dimension hidden within this behavior. To not post your photo is to detach from the illusion of constant performance. It's an act of inner stillness in a society that never stops showing off. These individuals often value authenticity more than aesthetics. They prefer real connections over virtual impressions. Their self-esteem doesn't fluctuate with online feedback. They live from within, not from the reflection of a lens. But this doesn't mean they lack confidence or connection. In fact, many of them observe others closely, learning how people behave when they think they're being watched. They understand the fragile psychology of those who constantly need attention, and they consciously choose not to be part of that game. By staying unseen, they protect their energy. By avoiding exposure, they retain their freedom. In essence, people who don't post their photos are not running away from the world. They're simply navigating it with awareness. They've seen the cost of overexposure, the emptiness behind digital admiration, and the quiet loss of privacy that comes with public life. They've chosen to preserve something most people have already sold, the right to remain unknown. And in a time where everyone is shouting to be seen, the ones who stay silent often hold the deepest strength. Their absence from the screen is not a void, it's a boundary, a statement that says, I exist beyond the image, you can't define me with a photo. And like most people, those who don't post their photos on social media aren't moved by the thrill of being noticed. They've detached themselves from the cycle of digital validation that consumes so many minds. In psychological terms, they've broken away from what is called the external locus of approval, the need for others to confirm one's worth. They don't crave likes, hearts, or comments. They understand that validation gained through exposure is fragile. It disappears as quickly as it arrives. Instead, they find strength in self-recognition, a quiet confidence that doesn't depend on how many people are watching. In today's world, emotional detachment is often misunderstood. It's not coldness, it's clarity. Those who refuse to participate in the endless performance of posting, posing, and proving are not uninterested in life. They're simply uninterested in the illusions of it. They have realized that social media doesn't reflect reality. It reflects perception, and perception is often a lie carefully built to attract attention. When someone chooses not to post their photos, they're rejecting the invisible contract that says, you must display yourself to be valued. They see through the illusion that exposure equals importance. Social media is designed to feed our emotional centers. Every like, every notification releases a small dose of dopamine, the brain's pleasure chemical. It gives us a sense of being seen, appreciated, even loved. But what starts as a harmless joy quickly turns into dependency. People begin to equate digital applause with self-worth. And when that applause fades, they feel empty. The people who don't post their photos have broken that addiction. They have trained their minds to live without external stimulation. They don't wait for digital approval to feel confident. Their self-image is not a performance, it's a private truth. This emotional detachment creates power, a kind of quiet dominance that others can sense but can't fully explain. They seem calm, centered, even mysterious, because they are not bound by the same psychological chains that keep others seeking attention. They are not constantly performing to prove they exist. They know they exist. Their worth is internal, not public. That's what makes them appear different, sometimes intimidating, sometimes unreachable. People are drawn to what they cannot easily read, and emotional detachment creates that mystery. There is also a darker psychological layer beneath this detachment. When you are emotionally independent, you become less predictable. Others cannot manipulate you through attention or silence. In dark psychology, this is considered a form of power equilibrium, the ability to stay emotionally neutral in a world that feeds on reactions. People who post constantly often reveal their emotional state to the world. Their joy, insecurity, pride, or loneliness. Those who don't post reveal nothing. They remain unreadable. This unreadability gives them control, because the less people know about you, the less they can use against you. Such emotional independence also speaks to a higher self-awareness. These individuals understand that emotions are energy, and energy should be protected. Every post, every update, every attempt to be seen costs mental and emotional energy. When you stop feeding that system, you regain focus. You think more clearly, you feel less anxious, you start living in the real world instead of the screen world. That shift changes everything. It deepens your sense of identity. People who don't seek online attention often find their validation in achievement, learning, or inner peace. Their sense of fulfillment comes from doing, not showing. They don't need to prove their happiness with a selfie. They experience it in private. They don't seek sympathy by displaying their sadness. They process it quietly. That's emotional maturity, the ability to contain your inner world without making it a public spectacle. This doesn't mean they are emotionless. On the contrary, they feel deeply, but they express carefully. Their emotions are not for the crowd to consume. They choose to share only with people who truly matter. That selectivity protects their peace. It keeps their mental landscape clean from the noise of opinion and judgment. In a sense, emotional detachment isn't isolation. It's filtration. It's knowing what deserves your emotional energy and what doesn't. In a world addicted to visibility, the ones who stay unseen are often the most self-aware. They live without the pressure of constant comparison. They don't measure their lives against filtered realities. They don't need to announce their growth or happiness to make it real. Their peace comes from knowing who they are when no one's watching. That is emotional independence, the rare ability to exist fully without the need to perform. They are not detached from life. They are detached from illusion. They have learned that not every feeling needs to be displayed, and not every moment needs to be shared. Their detachment is a form of discipline, a quiet mastery over the self. And in that mastery, they find something most people never do: freedom. Some people don't post their photos on social media, not because they are shy, but because they prefer to observe rather than be observed. In a world where everyone is trying to be seen, they choose to see. This is a psychological inversion. They shift from being the subject of attention to becoming the analyst of it. They are the quiet watchers in the digital crowd, those who understand that what people reveal online says more about their psyche than any private confession could. They don't need to post to participate. They engage through awareness, not exposure. This silent observation is not mere curiosity, it's strategy. In dark psychology, observation is one of the most powerful tools for understanding human behavior. When you stop performing, you start noticing the performances of others. You begin to see patterns, how people show their insecurities through selfies, how they mask loneliness behind travel photos, or how they seek validation by displaying happiness. The observer learns that social media is not a mirror of reality, but a stage of desire. Everyone is performing a version of themselves they wish others to believe. Those who don't post learn to read between the pixels. They become analysts of emotion, studying the subtleties of expression, timing, and tone. A single caption can reveal insecurity. A pattern of posts can reveal obsession. By not participating, they maintain a distance that allows clarity. When everyone else is busy reacting, they are studying. This gives them psychological power, because power comes not from being seen, but from seeing what others cannot. It's the same principle used by psychologists, investigators, and even manipulators. Control the information flow, and you control perception. Many of these silent observers develop a form of emotional intelligence that goes unnoticed by others. They can sense falseness instantly because they are not distracted by their own need to be liked. Their lack of exposure sharpens their perception. They see the subtle anxiety behind a confident post, the hidden sadness behind forced positivity. They watch how people construct their digital identities, how they crave validation through repetition, how they slowly lose authenticity while trying to appear perfect. This awareness turns them into quiet judges of human nature, not out of arrogance, but understanding. There's also a darker side to this kind of observation, a fascination with the psychology of deception. Social media is full of masks, and those who don't post learn how easily people create illusions. They notice the difference between reality and presentation, truth and performance. Over time, this can make them skeptical of digital life altogether. They begin to see attention as a weakness, exposure as vulnerability. The more they observe, the more they realize that the need to be seen is often a reflection of inner emptiness. They therefore choose to remain unseen, not because they have nothing to show, but because they understand that mystery protects the soul. This observational mindset gives them an aura of mystery in real life too. People sense something about them, a depth, a calmness, a quiet power. It's the energy of someone who doesn't need to prove anything. In psychological terms, this is asymmetric awareness. They know more about others than others know about them. That imbalance creates influence. The one who observes silently always has the advantage because they can anticipate, analyze, and adapt without revealing their own intentions. Some might call this behavior distant or detached, but in truth, it's deeply conscious. They understand that being overly visible makes one predictable. And predictability is weakness. When you are easy to read, you are easy to control. By keeping their lives and faces private, they maintain unpredictability. People can't categorize them, and that creates psychological power. Others might feel uneasy or intrigued around them because mystery challenges the human mind. We are drawn to what we can't fully understand. So, the people who don't post their photos aren't just avoiding attention, they are reclaiming control over their identity. They see the world's obsession with exposure as a kind of psychological trap, and they refuse to walk into it. They are not disconnected from the digital world. They are above it, observing it like a scientist studies a living experiment. Every scroll tells them something about human behavior: insecurity, pride, envy, loneliness, and the endless hunger for acknowledgement. In the end, their silence is not absence, it's awareness. They live in the shadows of the digital age, but their vision is clearer than those blinded by the spotlight. They don't chase followers, likes, or comments because they've seen the cost of those things. They would rather be the unseen mind watching the play than the actor trapped in it. They know the truth that few are willing to face, that visibility is not always power, sometimes invisibility is. Not everyone who avoids posting photos does it out of strength. Some do it out of fear, a quiet, protective instinct rooted deep in the psychology of control. Humans by nature seek to manage how they are perceived. Social media, however, takes that power away. The moment you upload a photo, you surrender control to the public eye. People begin to form judgments, attach meanings, and create stories about you that may not be true. Those who choose not to post their photos sense this danger instinctively. They understand that exposure invites interpretation, and interpretation often distorts reality. By remaining unseen, they maintain ownership of how much others can know or assume about them. This behavior is tied to what psychologists call self-concealment as control. It's not necessarily fear of being judged, but fear of being misunderstood. In a digital world where people's images are consumed, mocked, and compared, not showing your face becomes an act of self-defense. For some, it's a reaction to past experiences, a moment where trust was betrayed, or vulnerability was used against them. For others, it's simply a recognition that privacy has become a rare form of freedom. They'd rather be unseen than misinterpreted, silent rather than exposed. It's a paradox. By hiding, they regain control. In dark psychology, fear and control often exist together. The person who refuses exposure may seem cautious, but beneath that caution lies awareness. They know that human nature has a dark tendency, the desire to judge, criticize, and dominate through perception. People online create hierarchies of beauty, success, and status through images. Every post becomes a silent competition for approval. Those who step back from it are not always weak. Sometimes they're simply unwilling to play a rigged game. They see through the illusion of validation and recognize the manipulation behind it. Still, fear is a powerful motivator. The fear of judgment, rejection, or ridicule shapes behavior even when it's hidden. Some individuals carry internal wounds, experiences of being misunderstood, excluded, or belittled. They learn that visibility invites pain, so they build emotional walls. Social media, for them, becomes a dangerous arena, a place where everyone pretends to know you, but no one actually does. Their absence from it is not mere avoidance, it's self-preservation. In the language of dark psychology, this is a defensive adaptation, an attempt to stay emotionally safe in a world that rewards superficial exposure. Yet, this control can also become a quiet strength. When you are not constantly displaying yourself, you free yourself from external definitions. You no longer need approval to feel real. You don't wait for others to confirm your beauty, your success, or your existence. You own your narrative, even in silence. By not posting, you stay unpredictable, and unpredictability is power. People can't label what they can't see. They can't control what they can't read. In a world obsessed with oversharing, the one who withholds remains the most intriguing. But it's important to recognize that this fear-driven control is not always conscious. Sometimes it's a habit, a quiet pattern of emotional self-protection. People tell themselves they just don't like taking pictures, when in reality, they don't like being interpreted. They've seen how quickly people jump to conclusions, how a smile can be read as arrogance, how a neutral face can be seen as sadness, how beauty can provoke envy. They understand that perception is rarely kind, and so they choose to give it less to feed on. This decision to stay unseen is not a rejection of connection, it's a demand for respect. It says, you don't get to know me through pixels. It's an insistence on depth over display. In an age where attention has become currency, withholding oneself is the truest form of rebellion. Those who don't post their photos are not hiding from life. They are guarding its essence. They refuse to let strangers define them through a momentary image. Their restraint is both fear and wisdom, fear of being misunderstood, and wisdom in knowing that not everyone deserves access to their reality. So yes, some don't post because they're cautious, even afraid, but fear isn't always weakness. Sometimes fear sharpens awareness. Sometimes it teaches boundaries, and sometimes it leads to mastery, the understanding that control over your image begins with silence. The person who chooses not to be seen hasn't disappeared. They've simply stepped outside the illusion, where peace is found not in being visible, but in being untouchable. So when you see someone who never posts their photo, don't mistake their silence for emptiness. Some are protecting their peace, some are observing your chaos, and some are simply living beyond the algorithm where the real self doesn't need likes to exist, because sometimes the strongest presence is the one that doesn't need to be seen.